What's going on, guys? It's Sharif here again with Boostu. Today we're going to talk with Goldie Chan. She is a highly valued person on LinkedIn who has done a ton of branding and content creation, and a huge inspiration of mine too. She is the founder of Warm Robots, and she also became the LinkedIn top voice of 2018. And she's also been on Forbes personal branding and storytelling. Okay, she's a huge inspiration of mine, and she is somebody I look forward to interviewing and also featuring on this course. All right, guys, let's jump right into it. Hey, Goldie Chan, would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us about what you do. Tell us about your brand and what you've been doing on LinkedIn.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. So I'm Goldie Chan. I'm also known hilariously as the Oprah of LinkedIn. That's my nickname given to me by the Huffington Post and a few other publications. So on LinkedIn, I was the top content creator, top video maker on the platform for 2 years in a row, and that garnered me LinkedIn Top Voice, which is the highest honor I guess you could get on the platform. Now, of course, when I'm not making videos on LinkedIn or other platforms, I run my own agency called Warm Robots, which is based right here in sunny Los Angeles, and we split our time between here, Texas, and New York, although maybe not right now.
Awesome. When did you start Warm Robots?
So I started Warm Robots, I should know this officially off the top of my head. I want to say the start date was a little fuzzy, but it started essentially between 2018 and 2019. So I started my agency during creating all of those LinkedIn videos.
That makes sense. That's kind of like myself. I started in 2018 just branding myself, getting on LinkedIn and just trying to push the initial brand. And what I did was I reached out to industry professionals and interviewed them, and then I kind of took that forward and created the brand called as Boostu. And of course it's kind of different from now because it's Boostu.academy. It's kind of like building content and building courses, but back then it's kind of like I created that brand and it turned into a company, kind of like per se. That's really cool.
Well, I think it's pretty crazy because in 2017, I got into this super early LinkedIn video beta.
Right.
There were maybe 20 other creators who were in the beta with me. A lot of them who don't even make videos anymore or stopped after 3 months.
Right.
And it was a super interesting time because it was so experimental.
Exactly.
So it absolutely makes sense that you started in 2018 and then kind of went forward and your business kept evolving, especially on LinkedIn, which is a platform that's all about business.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is kind of jump into some questions, and feel free to stop me at any point if you have any questions for myself. So we're gonna start off with the first one. First one being, how did you come about using LinkedIn?
Okay, so I have been using LinkedIn forever. I've been using LinkedIn really as a resume platform. I mean, who doesn't use LinkedIn in that way? So I've used LinkedIn to get a job, to hire other people. And there was a brief period of time which has sort of overlapped into now where I do personal branding for C-level executives. And so I go into their LinkedIn profiles and give them advice on what to do on LinkedIn.
Nice.
So it wasn't until 2017 that I actively started creating content on LinkedIn.
Okay. How has LinkedIn helped you with your business and/or goals?
So it's so funny. Like I said, I actually didn't have my agency live until I started doing LinkedIn videos. So to rewind it a little bit, give you a little bit of the history behind how I got to making my agency. So about a month before starting doing LinkedIn videos, I was on what I'd like to call a sabbatical, which is a really nice way of saying I was unemployed and I wasn't looking for a job. So I'm on my sabbatical and I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm just waiting to get my next full-time marketing or social media job. I just left a head of marketing role.
Exactly.
And then I get into the LinkedIn video beta, and then I start making videos on this platform that no one has ever seen videos on, because no one thinks, I think even now, really, no one really thinks I'm going to go to LinkedIn to watch
videos.
Content.
Right.
So it's silly, and I'm sure when you started your interview series too, people were just like, why on LinkedIn?
Exactly.
That almost doesn't make any sense. So that's what I got a lot in 2017 is like, why not YouTube? Why not Instagram? All these platforms that were more mature than LinkedIn. And I liked LinkedIn because it was brand new. There was this really cool new creator community that was rising up, and I was helping Mama Bear nurture. So it was just like a really nifty time to be involved in a creator community. And to go back to your original question, how did that help me then make my current business? So I like to joke that I am still waiting to get my next 9-to-5 job, and we are currently in 2021. So it's been a few years and I still haven't gotten my next 9-to-5 job yet. I'm still waiting to do that because my agency has taken off, and the work that I do actually as a creative has taken off. And normally during normal times I am traveling the world and doing a lot of public speaking, so I wouldn't have been able to do a lot of that without the success that I had on LinkedIn, and without people literally just sending me DMs and being like, do you want to be the keynote in our conference in Toronto, which is, by the way, very cool. And the first time somebody asked me to be their main keynote, I was just like, really? Me? You want me to be your main speaker? And that was 100% because I was active on LinkedIn.
On LinkedIn. Nice. Okay. That's actually pretty awesome. How did that experience go? As like you mentioned going to Canada and doing being featured as a keynote person. How did that experience go for you?
Sure. So before, I should disclaim this. Before going to Toronto, I had spoken domestically, aka in the United States, quite a bit, but to much smaller audiences, right?
Gotcha.
I'm talking folding chairs in rooms, as opposed to, you get in the room and there's the nice seats, right? The seats that are meant for a conference. And you have rows and rows and rows of people, not just your friends in the first 3 rows being like, you can do this, Goldie. I believe in you, which was my first talk I gave on LinkedIn, was literally like that.
Gotcha.
But it was so cool to be speaking on stage. And at that time, I actually spoke about, it was very meta. I spoke about LinkedIn. Right. And I brought somebody from LinkedIn Toronto to also do a fireside chat with me after my keynote, so we could talk even more about LinkedIn. But I personally love being on stage. I love speaking in front of people. I feel it's really fun to educate one to many. So, which I'm sure this course is also doing.
Yes, it is. I think I can almost relate to that. I think one of the experiences that I had was I took a boot camp a couple years ago, and the same boot camp I graduated from, I was able to go back and actually speak in front of the students about my experience graduating.
This was a coding boot camp.
Yes.
Yes.
So after graduating, I was able to speak to them about my experience going out into the field and getting a job, and currently working at AT&T. But it was just a great experience, and I never thought that just being able to speak in front of a crowd, I never thought that I would do that one day, right? And then eventually, like one of my biggest goals is to speak at a TED Talk. So it's like, how did I go from just being a designer or coding and designing to wanting to speak at a TED Talk, right? So that's kind of like one of the opportunities that LinkedIn allowed for me, was because of being active, is that the individuals at the boot camp, they saw my branding, they saw my post, said, hey Sharif, do you want to come up here and do a keynote presentation? It's like, wow, of course, absolutely. It's an opportunity.
Yeah, so I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think that is one of the most important takeaways about LinkedIn, or really any platform, is being present on the platform, the 2 Ps. So making sure that people know you exist, and then also letting people know why you're existing on that platform. I see a lot of people making content just to throw it up on the platform, so they're making a lot of noise, but I think it's so helpful if you make very targeted noise, very specific noise. So if you say are on LinkedIn all of you out there who are looking for your next job, you want to be gainfully employed, like I eventually do. If you're looking for something, it's helpful if you talk about the thing that you're looking for. So if you want to be, say, a front-end engineer, I grew up in the Bay Area, so a lot of what I talk about is all that nerdy tech stuff. But say you want to be a front-end engineer, perfect. Then you need to talk about that in your content. Why? Because then people will remember, oh, this person, they do front-end engineering. Maybe I should talk to them about this new role that just opened up.
Exactly. 100% agree. 100% agree with that. Okay, so we're gonna jump into the more of the branding aspect of being on LinkedIn or in general social media. So, to you, what is branding to you?
Oh gosh, branding is such a big term. So I actually write about this for Forbes as well. That was one of the things I forgot to mention. And I think to me, a brand is the story that you tell, right? Sometimes it's the story that other people tell about you, which isn't always a good story.
Yeah.
So how do we control our brand or our story is we try to tell as much of it as we can. I always give this one exercise to my clients / when I give talks on branding, and that is, what are your 3 keywords? So what do I mean by this? You have what I call hard keywords and soft keywords. And hard keywords are you a writer? Are you an engineer? Are you an artist? And your soft keywords are you funny? Are you inspirational? Are you snarky? What are those hard keywords and soft keywords? And you only get 3. So you get to pick, and you have to pick 1 hard keyword, but you only get 3, and you have to pick from both categories. And I've made clients do some crazy stuff, like make lists of 50 or 100, and then they have to narrow down to 3 that really explain their brand. And the reason why you do this is then your brand goes through these keywords, and it's super helpful. So once again, if you want to be known as an engineer, then you should filter your brand through that. Now, if you want to be known as an educator, then you filter your brand through that.
Gotcha. That makes 100%. Okay, so how are some of the ways that you showcase your brand?
I think this is a really fun question because I'm always changing the ways I showcase my brand, but let's talk specifically on LinkedIn. So obviously on LinkedIn, I am making a ton of video content. In fact, I think I still might be the most prolific video creator on LinkedIn. Between 2017 and 2019, I created over 800 videos on the platform alone.
Wow.
And I would say 98% of those were 100% original content. Some of them were reposts of that original content. Right. And most of it was edited completely by me. So I learned editing just to be able to do videos on LinkedIn. But most of my video content is out there in the wild on LinkedIn. I also do quite a bit of long form writing. Like I said, I write for Forbes, so sometimes I write on LinkedIn too. And then every once in a while, I do short form content. I like to do inspirational quotes a lot, not because I want to have a space filler, but because it always surprises me when I get these messages from people who have read an inspirational quote and it literally inspires them, which is what inspirational quotes are supposed to do. So it really brings them to think about their lives in a different way. It makes them want to start a new project, or it makes them want to rethink maybe a toxic thing that they're doing in their lives. Those are the kind of quotes that I love to share with people.
Nice. Okay. So from your experience, how would you structure a post or text-based or even a video in general?
Sure. So the way I've done this has changed over time. So there was a long period of time with my videos where I had a very specific structure. It was like emoji, title, emoji, space, block of text, space, block of text.
I did the same thing.
And then we have hashtag. It was very specific. And now I'm much more loose with it, mostly because I've noticed that people have started to think that what I do is the holy grail of text for video and image content. So I like to change it up so people don't copy what I'm doing and
Right.
they don't think independently for themselves. What I think is helpful is you still try to get the message that you're saying in the first 5 words or so. So if you're saying, I just wrote this Forbes article, that should be, the word Forbes should be in the first 5 words or so people know that that's what this post is about. It is also helpful to not write everything in all caps. It is also helpful to not tag a million people in your post because then it's spam.
Exactly.
Same with hashtags. If you have 20 full caps, once again the caps, hashtags in the body of your text, it just looks to me super junky, and so visually I just don't find it super appealing. I think to me the rule is always 4 hashtags or less, and one of those can be an original hashtag. So maybe hashtag Boostu is your original hashtag that you own and nobody else is really using that hashtag. For me, it's of course hashtag Daily Goldie because I made daily videos for 2 years. So I basically have that as my main hashtag, and I still use that on some of my content. So I think it's helpful to think in terms of content length, the number of hashtags and type of hashtags, and then also who are you tagging? And you don't always have to tag people in your content.
Nice. That was a great answer. What does brand voice or tone mean within your posts? So this could be, text-based, or it could be videos, audio, etc.
Sure. I think tone and voice is so important. I tell a lot of my clients that I work with to not necessarily be conservative, but be careful. Use common sense. I think a lot of people don't always use common sense commonly when they are creating their content. I'm using all the C words right now. And I think it's helpful when you think about brand tone or voice to use that common sense. Now for me, what is my tone? I do think it's really funny to step outside of myself and then look at my own brand tone and voice. I like to think that my brand tone and voice, and this is what other people have told me, is usually very warm. It's a little bit funny. It's pretty appropriate, right, for all ages. And then usually it gets you to think. It gets you to quietly think about something. So that's my tone and my voice that I have on the platform. Now, other people have wildly different tones and voices on the platform. Some people like to be really loud and in your face. Some people also like to do things that are really, really like very thoughtful and on a super deep level. So it's, to me, super interesting to see the different tones that are on the platform.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as we're talking about that, I thought of one individual. You may know of him. I'm not sure, but his name is Gary Vaynerchuk. Are you familiar with this individual?
Yes, I have met Gary, and I have talked before.
Nice. And the reason why I brought him up was I mentioned him in the course as well, but I know like one of his, or a lot of his videos that I've watched over the years is that his voice, or I guess like his tone, or how he approaches certain questions, it's more like direct, and or he curses a lot in his content, which that fits his personality, that fits him, right? I would say to the students that are watching this, try to be careful. I mean, especially if you are at that level, of course, by all means, it's your brand, it's who you are, it's you're showcasing who you are as an individual. But if you are just starting off on the platform, if you are trying to look for a job, or especially on LinkedIn, or if you're creating a brand for your business, try to stay away from the strong direct approach and using a lot of curse words in your content. It may lead people off, but if you're at that level, by all means.
And I know that there are some people who are, I just never name names, so I'm not going to name names. So there are some people on the platform right now who are calling themselves the Gary Vee of LinkedIn. I have strong feelings about people who also name themselves, as opposed to being given a name and then I guess using that name that they've been given.
Right.
But you are purposefully, I think, swearing for no reason. If you watch enough Gary Vee content, you'll notice that he says something in his videos, right? So
Absolutely.
his videos aren't just him swearing. He's trying to impart knowledge, and the way he streams that knowledge just happens to be much more loud and in your face and with swear words. But if it's not, to me, educational at the end of the day, and especially on a platform like LinkedIn, there's no purpose behind it. So really being careful that it's not helpful to just yell and yell and yell all the time without actually saying something. It will get you some traction on the platform. It will get you noticed a little bit, but like you said, it won't necessarily get you noticed in the good way.
Right. Absolutely. 100% agreed. And I think for the people and the individuals who don't know Gary Vaynerchuk, very, very highly influential person. I will leave a link to his LinkedIn page and his content as well on YouTube as well. You guys should definitely follow his content as well. So as for the next question, so to you, what is one piece of advice for individuals looking to brand themselves?
Oh, wow. So I always like to say one word to questions like this, and that is focus.
Focus. Okay.
So many of us start our brands and we think, I do 5 million things. If that's what my brand will be, it will be 5 million things.
Right.
Let me tell you a little truth about human beings, which has only become more and more real, which is we have so much noise in our lives. We have so many things going on around us. If you came up, right? Exactly. If you came up to me and you're like, hi, I do this, I'm going to remember maybe one of those, probably actually none of them. So when you have a brand that is super unfocused, you end up not being memorable. And it's so helpful, of course, for your brand to be memorable. So when I meet people who are multi-hyphenates, because let's be honest, who these days isn't doing so many things at once? It's helpful to start narrow, and then when you can do more, then you can expand and do more and talk about all the different things you do. But when you start, you have to start from a seed before you can grow into a tree, right? Absolutely.
I love that response, with starting with the word focus. That was a great response. I love that. So for the next question, and this is actually the last question as well, what is one piece of advice for individuals looking to improve their brand awareness?
Oh gosh, so if you are looking to improve brand awareness, I'll just redefine that for you. I'm sure you define it in other places in this course, but to me, I always think about just people being aware that your brand, your you exists if we're talking about personal brands. And the best way to improve brand awareness is to start building your brand. Once again, let's go back to that focus. With a clear focus, with our 3 keywords, and then from there you can begin thinking about, okay, what kind of content can I create? Or if you don't want to create content, I'm going to give you a pro tip right now. So say you aren't a content creator. Say you're like, oh, I don't want to write. I don't want to make videos. How can you still get your brand out there? How can you still get people aware of your brand? Well, you can hop on other people's content. So that might mean jumping on somebody else's podcast. That might mean getting interviewed for somebody else's blog. That might mean going into a room in Clubhouse. That might mean sharing a TikTok. That might mean being interviewed on somebody's LinkedIn video. There are a million ways to think about jumping in on other people's content. And the best part is you are helping them out too, because you're giving them extra content.
Nice. I appreciate the response to that one. So thank you so much, Goldie Chan. I appreciate your time. And as we wrap this up, do you have any last minute advice or last minute tips or thoughts on any of this?
Oh gosh, I just always feel like the best time to start building your brand was of course yesterday. But if you can't go back in time, try to go back in time. then the best time to start your brand is today.
Exactly.
And even if that means just thinking about your brand and really trying to understand where to start with your brand, just go ahead and start doing. And that's how you'll start to create your brand.
Absolutely. All right, guys. So as we wrap this up, Goldie Chan, can you tell us about any social media channels or any areas that you want people to follow you, whether it be on social media, LinkedIn, YouTube, any page? Is there any links to your business, anything like that? Just say it here now, and we'll make sure to have that posted on the screen, as well as clickable links for people to download.
Sure. So since we're talking about LinkedIn, of course, I'm going to give you my LinkedIn profile. I was lucky enough to snag linkedin.com/Goldie. So
nice.
LinkedIn.com/in/Goldie. That is the correct URL. So of course, please follow me on LinkedIn. As you now know, I create videos there and other content. And you can always find some of my other things that I do at goldiechan.com. And you can find my agency at warmrobots.com. And if you want to watch me just tweet nonsense, feel free to follow me at Goldie Chan on Twitter.
On Twitter. Okay, cool. All right, that wraps it up, guys. You may have a bunch of people following you once this course is out. Thank you so much for your time.